Solutions agency call Friday. Today is August the 6th, 2021. So appreciate everybody hopping on the call. I'm Joe Johnson here in Chicago, and my co-host Jimmy Hernandez in San Antonio, Texas. We got a great call lined up for you. We've been working on it. We're kind of I guess you can say we're going to kind of tag team last week's call that we did, kind of keep on the same theme but a different topic. So again, if you're new, like I said, we've got one new agent that I see that hopped on. Mickey, appreciate you hopping on. We prepare really hard every single week to make sure that we're bringing you great content. And we get a lot of great feedback and a lot of suggestions from our agents. So if there's something that we need to hit, or you feel like there's a topic that we need to cover, or if you want to come on and be a guest speaker, please, contact myself, contact Jimmy, and we'll get you on. And we want to hit every topic that you have. And of course, we record these calls, we put them on the YouTube channel, and a good majority of them we put on the Senior Solutions agency website. Not all of them, but we put quite a few. Last week's we put, I don't know if it's on yet, but I think it is. If you check, I think it is under sales training, and I will definitely get this one on as well. But we're going to go ahead and kick off the call. We've got just a couple of announcements. I do want to say I appreciate all the agents that ordered folders last week. If you weren't on last week's call, I didn't send out a text message or a flyer or anything, but we did recently update the folders, the Senior Solutions sales folders. So if you weren't on last week, or if you need to order folders, now is the time to do it. We got a big sale it was last week going all the way through August the 15th. And you can get the Senior Solutions folders, 89 cents a piece. So it's almost 10 cents cheaper than the regular price. And I'm doing free shipping with a minimum order of 50. So if you missed it, or if you're hesitating, procrastinating, now is the time to do it. Get them ordered in now so you can get those folders ASAP. And Jimmy, let me flip it over to you real quick. You can promote your call for Monday.
Awesome, thank you, Joe. So, for those that are new to the call today, on Monday evenings, every Monday, 6 o'clock Central Time, I host a webinar that is financial education, if you will. I'm a financial advisor. I'm actually a fiduciary, and so my topics range every week. They differ, but everything has to do with building or keeping or protecting your wealth. And this coming Monday, we're just going to talk about life insurance 101. As you can see in the descriptions there, it says, are you confused as to which type of life insurance to get? Tune in and learn the pros and cons of each type, right? You got term life, whole life, universal life. And even within those three, I'm going to say, types of life insurance, there's all sorts of variables, right? So Joe and I are going to tag team that this Monday. If you have a client or a prospect that you're working with, and maybe these are some of the questions that they ask. Typically these are going to be the people that perhaps are younger, but not necessarily, and they're not sure. They've heard buy term and invest the difference, or whole life is better than term life, or universal life's better, or term life's better. So we're going to answer all of those questions. We're going to really kind of break that down, and based on different scenarios, kind of make recommendations as to which type is going to fit the best scenario, and offer the best solution. And in some cases it might be a combination of different types of life insurance. But join us this Monday. Joe and I are going to do that. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. I think it'll be great for the agents, especially if you're new. You can learn a little bit more about the different types of insurances that are available. So Joe, I don't know if you want to add to that.
No, well, just um, I want to thank you for having me on as a guest speaker. I appreciate that. How does one attend the call if they would like to get onto the webinar? What do they need to do?
So you want to go ahead and register. So there's the webinar ID. It is with Zoom, right? So you're just going to go to zoom.us, and then you're going to type in that webinar ID. It'll ask you to register. If you register ahead of time, you'll get some reminder notifications, or you can register like right at the time of the webinar, but it's going to be a live webinar. We do record it. So if you register, as long as you register, but are unable to attend, then you'll get an email the following day with the recorded copy. That way you can look at it at your convenience later. So please register. I just realized I didn't put Zoom up there. So yeah, zoom.us, and then that's the webinar ID. If you have any questions, reach out to Joe or myself.
Awesome. Please join us. It's going to be a great educational call. All right. So today's topic, we're going to be talking about the in-home presentation. We're going to be talking about the agent killers. So Jimmy and I wanted to discuss some of the things that we've done ourselves and that we've learned through going out and helping families and with coaching hundreds of agents and a lot of the feedbacks that we get. We're going to help you fix some of the biggest mistakes you might be making right now, and maybe you don't even realize that you're making them. One thing about this business is that the insurance business can be a business of contradictions, okay? And what I mean by that is that, you'll hear one thing, and then you'll hear something that contradicts what that person said. And we'll get into a little bit of that later in the call. So just, keep in mind is that it's not everything is black and white. Okay, so there are a lot of contradictions. If you missed last week's call, okay, we did a call called door knocking mistakes, the biggest mistakes that agents make door knocking. If you missed it, and if you're watching this on YouTube right now on our channel, check in the description. I'm going to leave a link of last week's call so you can click on that. And finally, if you are not subscribed to our channel, please subscribe. I do appreciate the subscribers that we do have. I think we're up to about 1,500 subscribers, which is awesome. Never expected that. So I appreciate everybody that views us and leaves, positive comments. By the way, too, as we're going through the call and we're going through the topics, if there are some things that you would like to add, some positive feedback, or maybe there are some agent killers / mistakes that we didn't cover, please, leave those in the comments so everybody can benefit from that. So Jimmy and I are going to tag team this. Like I said, today's topic is the in-home presentation, agent killers, biggest mistakes agents make. Jimmy, we really didn't talk about this, but do you want to kind of go back and forth, or you want to cover? If you want, what I can do is I can let you go first, cover some things, some topics, or some things that you think are some of the biggest mistakes, and then I'll kind of go through a few things that I have on my list. However you want to do it. Like I said, we didn't we really didn't plan this part out. We just kind of knew the topic that we wanted to cover.
Okay. Well, I guess I'll start, and then you can comment or then add. We can go back and forth.
Yeah. Let's do that.
So I'm going to say the first biggest mistake that I see new agents is that they kind of like really cut short the presentation. In some cases, they don't even really do a presentation. They just say, hey, well, how old are you? How's your health? How much coverage do you want? Okay, here's your rate. Like they did nothing to create value. So the in-home presentation is really designed to do two things. One, it allows you to build some rapport with that client. They kind of get to know you, and you get to know them. You know, it's kind of like a talking piece. But the second thing it does is it creates value. And so when we talk about, you know, the presentation, you should be using the flip chart, right? So that flip chart, it's real simple. You just take one page at a time and just use the I guess you can say the talking points that we have for you in the you know, magic formula, and you know, do the whole thing. Don't take a shortcut, right? Now, there's going to be very few exceptions. I mean, sometimes you have somebody that's pressing you for time. I've had scenarios, Joe has too, where we're on the porch and they're saying, "Hey, I want it. I just don't have time. How long is this going to take?" And man, we just do a speed round and blah blah blah. Right, we're writing up an application. We're in and out in 15 minutes, right? But like,
Right.
those don't come around very often. So what you need to do is make sure that that's not the rule, that's the exception, right? So the rule should be take your time, use the flip chart, go through the in-home presentation, and really allow yourself to build some rapport and build value with the client. The other thing it does is it really just, you know, it stirs up, I guess, questions on their end that you can resolve, questions that may not have come up if you didn't do the presentation. So I mean, it's a vital part of making the sell. So I'll let you comment on that, Joe.
Yeah, let me, that's great. And that's kind of what I mean by this is a business of contradiction. So Jimmy just said, hey man, you got to make sure you slow down and you do the presentation properly. And then he said, but if the client's in a hurry, speed through it. That's a contradiction, right? So a couple of things that I want to cover that I see that are biggest mistakes that agents make when getting started, and even agents that have been doing it. I mean, there's agents that have been with us for years, and I swear they don't know how to do the in-home presentation, okay? So one of the biggest mistakes that I see, Jimmy, is they never fully 100% learn and memorize the presentation in the beginning. And then they spend their whole career just kind of winging it. You know what I mean? Like every presentation is a little bit different. See, the thing about it is that when you learn the in-home presentation perfect, then you can wing it. Then it makes it easier to shortcut it, if that makes sense. It also gives you the flexibility to maybe be a little bit more flexible when you have that client that is in a hurry, because you know the in-home presentation front to back. You know what you can skip, what you shouldn't skip. Okay, so I think that's one of the biggest things that I see is that agents they don't fully learn it in the beginning. The other thing that I think, and what you talked about, is that agents sometimes are too rigid with their in-home presentation. In other words, they have zero flexibility. So when you get that client that you want to do your in-home presentation, maybe the client says, well, I'm pressed for time. Can we just do it out here on the porch? And you're like so rigid, and you're like, well, I've got to present this to you. Maybe we should reschedule. Okay. You never want to if the client is giving you a window of time, and even if it's just 10 or 15 minutes, you know that you can't do a full presentation in 15 minutes. You still go for it. Because oftentimes a client says, well, listen, man, I got like 10 minutes. I'm like, oh, perfect. It only takes me 5 minutes. Okay. Dude, once I'm in the house, 2 hours later, we're hugging and shaking hands and doing a deal, or even if it's on the front porch or whatever. So So that's the other part that I meant, about this business being a business of contradictions, is that you always want to do a full presentation, but know when it's okay to shortcut it and be flexible and understand your environment. And if the client gives you any window of opportunity, you want to make sure that you take it. Let me hit one more, Jimmy, and then I'll flip it over to you.
Sure.
The other thing that's important that I think, and it used to happen to me a lot, is that I wouldn't stay on task during the presentation. In other words, I'd let the client take me down all these crazy rabbit holes. Okay. And next thing you know, they're showing me their rock collection, or we're going out to the garage so the dude can show me his power tools or whatever, just crazy stuff. So it's important to spend the time with the client to get to know them, but also you have to learn to value your time and to really stay on task, because some clients, man, they have no intentions of buying. They just want to keep you there all freaking day and take you down a million different rabbit holes and be your friend. But when it comes down to doing business, they really don't want to do business. So, and that's something that you learn over time. It's a skill that you develop, and it's a skill that you can really only learn by actually going out and making hundreds of presentations, and then you kind of get a sense of which clients are serious, which clients are just want a friend and really have no intentions of ever buying from you. So there's something I want to add to that I thought was important, but I can't quite. Maybe I'll think about it. So Jimmy, let me flip it back over to you to go down some of the other mistakes that you have noticed.
Okay, so let me see here. How about
okay,
not building rapport?
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of like in the same area, but like I think it's important that before you start your presentation, that you do something to, get settled in, if you will, with the client, kind of build some rapport. You don't want to spend all day on building rapport. Like, I mean, that's a mistake that I see a lot of agents do, is that, they don't shut up. They'll talk 30, 40 minutes and they hadn't even done a presentation.
And then the client's out of time and they're like, then you got to reschedule, and then it's you never get back in the house.
Exactly. So, but keep it short, keep it simple. I'm just going to give you a couple of tips for building rapport. So, like one, what I like to do is always, smile, and I always like to look for something to compliment that person on, whether it's their appearance or their home. Maybe it's something in their garden, maybe it's the decorating, or maybe they have a collection in the home. Maybe they like Betty Boop figurines, or I don't know, maybe they collect Star Wars figures, or whatever it is that they're into, right? Maybe they collect roosters, who knows, right? But like, look for something that you can compliment them on. If they have a lot of pictures of their family, walk over, look at the pictures, and make some comments or ask questions, and compliment them, right? So most people receive compliments very welcomely, right? So it allows you to talk. More importantly, allows them to talk about themselves a little bit, and just agree and nod your head and listen to them. And then when you're ready to get started, then you can use a like a segue question. A real simple one for me is so let me ask you, we received this card, what was the reason why you filled out the card and mailed it in? What was most important to you? And that's kind of like just giving them a signal that, hey, we're going to get started now. We're going to start talking about
Right.
business. So Joe, I'll give that back to you.
All right, awesome. Okay, a couple of other things that I've seen with agents is they don't learn or they don't exhibit what I call relaxed confidence. Okay, so when you're doing your in-home presentation, you want to put the clients at ease. So you need to be really relaxed and have conversations like your friends and you've known these people for years and years and years, and just engage in a conversation like you would with your neighbor. How you been, what's going on with your life, and just have a relaxed type of presentation. But at the same time, and this is the kind of the catch, you need to be relaxed but confident at the same time, so you have the ability to move from the chit chat, bond, and rapport to, hey, let's get into business. It's time to do business. The other thing that I see agents do is that and again, this is where kind of the contradiction is that they kind of rush through the presentation. And here's the one thing that you can only learn over time is sometimes, Jimmy, have you ever walked into a house and you just know they're going to buy?
Yeah.
They're just buyers. The one thing you don't want to do is you don't want to spend too much time with the wrong people, but you also at the same time you don't want to rush your presentation. So my point is take your time. Spend enough time with the people that in your heart of hearts, and get down to, start getting into the presentation. So and don't be so quick to get out, especially if they're buyers. The other thing that I've heard from agents, and this is a big contradiction that maybe you've heard from other sales trainers, and I've always heard it, like my first job in the insurance business, everybody always said, never do a one-legger. If you show up and only the wife is there, the husband's not there, reschedule for another appointment. Well, I will say that maybe that is true with certain products, but I'm just telling you, in final expense, I've seen agents make the mistake of of they go in, it's a husband and wife, only one of them is there, and they fail to do the presentation or any type of presentation, and then they can never get back in. Oh, I talked to my husband and no, we don't want it, whatever. I'm just telling you, Jimmy, is that if I got a warm body and they're ready, I'm doing a presentation. I don't care if it's a one-legger. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Because I've had many times is like the wife is like, listen, don't even worry about my husband. You know, this is for me. You know, an unskilled agent would be like, well, they'd say something like, well, are you going to name your husband as the beneficiary? He really needs to be here. Dude, I'm just telling you, man, don't be afraid. Don't make the mistake of not doing a presentation, because even if you don't sell, even at the end they say, well, can I need to talk to my husband. Yeah, I totally understand. In fact, I'm going to be back in your area tomorrow. Let's reschedule. If you do the proper presentation with one party, and if you do the proper job, they're going to want it so bad that they're going to invite you back to say, oh, my wife needs to see this, my husband needs to see this. And if you do a good job, they're going to sell their spouse so hard how awesome you were that it's going to be easy to get back in. And sometimes they'll just buy right there. You know what I mean? And they'll say, well, you need to, yeah, let me do mine, and you can come back tomorrow or the next day, and we'll do my husband. So that's a mistake I've seen a lot of agents. I coach them. I say, hey, what happened with this appointment? Well, only the wife was there. It was a one-legger, so I didn't do it. Like, oh man, dude, do the presentation. And they're like, oh, but I heard you should never do a one-legger. Well, here's the exception. Not in final expense, you know? So I don't know if you want to add anything to that, or if you want to go ahead and move into the next mistake that agents make.
I think that's a great point. I mean, I've had a ton of one-leggers. I mean, the thing is, I mean, I've heard women tell me when I first started, I would say, your husband's not here. Should we set up a time? And they get mad. They say, no, I mean, I have my own bank account. I have my own money. I don't need my
Right.
husband. It's
Yep.
like a little attitude, right?
You can
So,
offend somebody by
yeah.
saying that, yeah, you can offend somebody like, well, don't you need your wife here or your husband here or whatever? And man, just go for it.
And the other thing is, if you want to get the other spouse, wait till you get the policy and you're going to go out and deliver it. That's the way to get the other spouse. So I've done this, countless times. So let's say, for example, the missus is at home and she, gets her policy in force. I'll schedule a time to deliver the policy, and I'll make sure that her husband's home so I can explain it to her. And I'm going to tell you, the wives, they want their husband to be covered too, right? It benefits them, and vice versa. The husband, wants, to be benefited, if the wife is, covered as well. So, it doesn't matter which way it goes. I'm just saying in general, usually it's the wife that's at home, and so you would have to sell to her first and then catch the husband later. Occasionally it's the other way around, but definitely don't not do a presentation just because you have one spouse there. So
Yeah, absolutely. The other thing I'm going to touch on, you mentioned about agents not doing the proper presentation and not doing the flip chart. I also just want to add to that, the other thing that I've seen agents skip for some reason is doing the 3-option close. Guys, you got to do the 3-option close, even if it's a modified 3-option close. I mean, before we had the worksheets, what I used to do is I just take the back of my lead card and I would, handwrite everything out and I was doing 3-option closes, back in, 2009, before we had the fancy 3-option worksheet paper. Make sure, even if it's got to be a modified, even if you forget, like, oh man, I forgot I don't have any 3-option worksheets with me. Who cares? You can borrow a scrap of paper from the client. You can flip over the lead card. You can do it on the back of an application. You can do a 3-option close on anything as long as you got pen and paper or even a tablet. You can do the 3-option close. So make sure you don't skip the 3-option close. The other thing, and we're kind of going out of, not that we're going out of order, but these are not in any particular order. So you may hear Jimmy and I talk about mistakes that agents make in the beginning of the presentation, at the end of the presentation. So they're not in any order. They're just kind of in the order that they popped in our head as we were writing them down. The next one I want to talk about is agents at the end of the presentation. A couple of things that agents do is that they skip what Jimmy and I call the cool down. So once you've made your presentation, you've solidified the sale, you've taken the application, agents are sometimes in too big of a rush to get out of the house. That's the time that you want to do what we call the cool down, and just have a little bit of cool down chit chat and get the clients to express their feelings of how relieved and what a burden this is. And you'll almost see clients sometimes like a sigh of relief after they've done this, and they, sometimes they'll have tears in their eyes, and they're just, they just feel good about, what they've done. And it's a lot of times I'll ask the client, so Mary, I mean, how do you feel about this? Or aren't you glad that you finally got this taken care of? And oh, I'm so relieved. I've been praying about this. I've been thinking about this for years and years. So make sure you do the cool down. And then to piggyback off of that, this is one of the biggest mistakes, Jimmy, I've seen agents make. They make a sale and then they like never follow up with the client ever again. They're like one and done. So a couple of things that I think are really important, and I would recommend using some type of record or a calendar. I have a little a sheet that I use, is that with every client, every presentation I make, when I sell them, I do a 3-day follow-up call, and then I schedule them for a 10-day follow-up call. And then I also send out thank you cards. So those are some of the mistakes. Make sure that you're following up, because, I can tell you this, is that I've walked into houses, like I've had clients schedule appointments with me. I'm doing the presentation, I'm going through everything, and Jimmy, they say, well, I had somebody come to my house like a week ago and I've never heard from them. And I'm like, well, did you do an application? Well, I think I did. Did you give them your banking information? Yeah. Did you receive your policy yet? No, I haven't received the policy yet, but I don't know what's going on. I haven't heard from the agent or anything. Man, those are clients that I'm able to replace. And then that first agent, they're going to get their business replaced, and then they're going to try to follow up like a month later when they find out the policy's been canceled. By then it's too late. The mistake that you could make is that could be happening to you, that you go in, you make your sale, you never talk to the client. Unbeknownst to you, they had sent in 2 lead cards. Agent, Joe Schmo shows up 3 days after you did, client, or a week later, they haven't heard from you. They don't know what's going on. And they buy from the other client who does everything right, and they follow up, and your policy gets canceled. So don't be that agent that is a one and done and doesn't do any follow-ups, and you don't send out. Make sure you're sending out thank you cards with your business and business card, and asking for referrals.
Great,
I'll flip it back over to you.
Great tip. I wanted to, if I can add to that,
Yes.
Joe, on the cool down and the follow up. If you're in and out, like let's say once you did your job, you built the rapport, you did the presentation, you created the value, you got the app, and then you turn around and run out as quickly as you can, you kind of leave a little bad taste in their mouth. So the cool down is important, because you want them to continue to feel good about not only their decision, but about you, and that you're legitimate, right? Because what's going to happen after you leave is they're going to talk to their kids or their spouse or a neighbor or a friend, brother or sister, and somebody's going to, not always, but somebody could, say, hey, what did you do? And like, oh no, that's not a good deal, or they're going to say something negative, right? So then that puts them on the defense, and they're thinking, oh well, shoot, well maybe I made a mistake, maybe I had misread this, maybe I had bad judgment, right? So if you've ever, whoever's listening, think about this. Have you ever written a policy, everything went well, and let's say within the first 2 weeks, or maybe even the first 30 days, they cancel the policy? Has that ever happened to you? Well, chances are you didn't do a good cool down, and you didn't do a good job at follow up, because what I just described, somebody else bent their ear and got them to change their mind, right? They call it buyer's remorse. So you want to cool down with them. You want them to know that, hey, I care about you. I'm not just here for the commission, and give them the warm and fuzzies. And I just want to add that there's a sheet, a form that's in the pre-sale folder. This is the perfect time to pull this out and cement the deal. And I pull out the form and I read them a little note. What's it called, Joe? I can't remember what we call it, but it talks about why they got the policy. It protects
Yeah, the I am your policy.
I am your policy, right? So you read them, I am your policy, and it gets very emotional. I've had people cry. I've had people, swell up with tears in their eyes. It makes them feel really good, and it really kind of summarizes the reason why they're putting this policy in place, right?
Can you
So,
see this?
go ahead, Joe.
Look at can you see oh, you probably on the camera.
Oh yeah, you're holding it up on the camera. I see it.
Yeah,
I
the I am your policy form.
and then let's just move on to follow up, guys. Again, somebody's going to talk to them, right? They're going to call their kids or their brother or the sister, and they're going to tell them, hey, I just did this, right? So you want to follow up. So the first thing I do, I mean, this is habit forming, or I should say not habit forming, it's a habit, it's a ritual for me. Every day when I come home, whatever new business I generate, the first thing I do is I send out a thank you card before the end of the day. I don't go to sleep without doing that thank you card, right? So then that goes in the mail that night. So usually, they're going to pick it up tomorrow, and then 2 or 3 days later they're going to get a thank you card. When they get that thank you card in the mail, and they have my picture on there, my phone number, my signature, a nice little message, that makes them feel good. That makes them know that Jimmy is legitimate. Because if I was out there to, like, what's the word I'm looking for, do some kind of scheme or scandal, I'm not going to be sending them a thank you card, right?
Right.
I got the money, I'm out. The other thing I do is that the following day I call them and I just let them know, hey, Joe, I just want to let you know that I submitted your application. Everything looks well. As soon as I hear back, I'll give you a call. And that's the next thing you want to do. Like Joe was talking about follow up. So you get the approval, you call them back, congratulate them, sound that real excitement. Oh, I'm so excited for you. This was approved. I just want to go over this again. So you're approved. You applied for $10,000 of coverage, and your policy is going to come in the mail, or I'm going to deliver the policy depending on the scenario. And your first payment is this date. This is going to really cement the deal and make sure that it sticks, and then they're not canceling. So you got to follow up with them. So I'll give that back to you, Joe. I know I kind of went a little long on it.
No, that's all right, dude. It's good stuff. The other thing that I forgot to mention, um, kind of goes along with the follow up and the in-home presentation, is that, and Jimmy, I know you've experienced this too. You've gone into a house, you make your presentation, then you find out that there was another agent there before. They're not sure if they got an application, and I asked the client, well, what did they leave you? They leave you a brochure, and then they have like some BS, something written on a napkin or something. Dude, I'm just telling you, if you're not using all the sales collateral, meaning the brochures and specifically the senior solutions folders, that's where an agent or client can get buyer's remorse. They buy a policy, they talk to their neighbor, they talk to their kids. Yeah, I got this life insurance policy. And then, the kids are like, well, what did you get? Well, I don't know. I mean, what did they leave you a receipt? And the client has nothing. If they have that nice presentation folder with everything in it, super professional, and you write you write out the policy receipt, you leave them the brochure. I mean, that shows that you're legit. So that will drastically decrease the amount of quick cancellations that if you're getting a lot of cancellations, it's probably because you're doing a quick presentation, you're slamming them, and you're not leaving them any collateral, you're not leaving them a folder, nothing, and you're not doing any follow-up. That's going to lead to bad persistency, placement, first bad placement, and then bad persistency because they're gonna cancel. The next thing that I want to talk about, and I don't know if agents are scared of this, but I see agents make the mistake of not digging in enough to the client's why and getting on the emotional side of this. Like they keep it too business-like, I guess, Jimmy, if you will. They're not asking those, I don't know if they're scared to ask the tough questions, but guys, they're sending those forms back in either through the mail or online, or they're saying yes to a telemarketer because there's something that emotionally triggered them that they want to get more information because they don't want to leave that financial burden to their family. So I don't know if it's lack of confidence, but don't make the mistake of keeping it so business-like. Learn to ask those tougher questions, if you will, and those emotional questions, and get your clients to engage of why they sent the form in. And you can even ask them, have they done any pre-planning for themselves? Have they ever had to plan a funeral for one of their loved ones? Do they know everything that's involved? Have they had any family members recently pass? Those are the type of questions that you can use to engage, to turn this from kind of a sterile business transaction to more of an emotional sale. And I will turn it, that's what I wanted to talk about, that finding the why, learn to ask emotional questions.
That's great. You did a great job. And Joe, usually what I do is when I start in the beginning, I ask them if you were to pass away today, what do you have in place to take care of those final arrangements? In most cases, they're going to say they don't have anything. In some cases, they have a little bit, but it's not enough, right?
Yeah.
And that's why they filled out the card. So then the second follow-up question to that is, so if you were to pass away and you have nothing in force or not enough, it's not adequate, who's going to bear that responsibility to, take care of that arrangement? And then they're going to say, it's my daughter, my son, or my wife, whoever it is, right? Now you know who they're trying to protect, right? Because that's usually, in most cases, who their beneficiary is going to be, right? So then the third question, in this series, Joe, is I ask, how is it going to affect them, right? Because in most cases, it's usually the kids that's the beneficiary. So a typical scenario would be, who's going to have to bear the responsibility to get this done? Oh, my daughter. Okay. How's that going to affect her? Oh, she doesn't have money. She's got her own family she's trying to raise. She's a single, blah, 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 blah. So they're giving you all the reasons why they're trying to protect their kids. But the most important part about it, Joe, is it's coming out of their mouth. They're hearing themselves say it, right? So that's the emotional aspect. But
let me add something to that. So in part of finding out who is it that they're trying to protect, the beneficiary, and maybe as an example, they say, well, it's going to be my daughter. Oh, okay. And always find out their name. Go one step further. And what is your daughter's name? Oh, my daughter, it's Teresa. Okay. And then in the conversation, now instead of just saying your daughter, or your son, your husband, you can now insert their name. It makes it more personal when you start just using the generic term daughter, insert their name in place of that, and it makes a bigger connection with them. Instead of just hearing the daughter, they hear the name of that particular person. I just wanted to add
And
that.
so if you move on, before you move on, just thought I'd throw in a little tip here.
Sure.
Most of the time they're going to say, financially it won't affect them, but every now and then you're going to have somebody that has that kid that's doing really well for themselves. Maybe their kid's a doctor or a lawyer or, some sort of professional, or, they're making a lot of money is what I'm trying to say. And they're very proud of it. And they let you know. Well, this is how I handled it. And the first time I handled it, it was like off the cuff, and it worked. And then I started using it after that, and it just really worked. So as an example, I had the first time I ever used this gentleman, he had a very nice house in a very, I'm going to say, respectable, well-known neighborhood in the San Antonio area. And, he did really well for himself, but unfortunately, the only life insurance he ever had was group insurance through his employer. So once he retired, he had no life insurance, and he had a pension that, once he passed away, there was no money to be left to the beneficiary, right? So he really didn't have like money to leave his kids. He was doing financially well, he's making his, monthly payments, or, he was able to live, but he didn't have anything in place. And so when I asked him, how would this affect your kids? He said, well, one son's a doctor, one son's a dentist. They got plenty of money. They can just write a check for it. So then I just came back in, but is that how you want them to remember you by? Is that the legacy that you want to leave behind, that you've done really well for yourself and they're doing good, they can afford it financially, but when they're talking to their friends and their family, they're going to say, my dad, when he died, I had to write a check. Is that what you want them to remember? And he said, of course not. That's why I filled out the card,
There you
right?
go.
And so I said, okay, well, because it's your responsibility, not their responsibility. And he says, yeah, that's right. And I wrote him up, right? So I always throw that back at him. So just thought I'd throw that in there. Maybe, a small percentage, 5% of the people that we talk to might have, a response like that, their children are doing really well and, they can afford it. But just because they can afford it, is that the memory that you want to leave? Is that the legacy you want to leave? And they don't. Nobody wants to leave that.
Right. Yeah. Very good point. I'm glad you brought that up. This is a great call, man. We're doing a lot of things. The other mistake that I see clients make is just during the presentation, they either forget or they fail to, in conversation, I guess, kind of bring up some of the competition that's out there, and then how here at Senior Solutions or how you're different than those companies, like, Colonial Penn. I mean, if you watch, if your clients are watching daytime TV, trust me, they're getting bombarded by, the 995 plan from Colonial Penn, or in the mail, they're getting mailers from AARP. So during the presentation, it's really important for you to express and let your clients know how you're different, like what makes you different from those other companies. And I'll even ask clients, Jimmy, if, have they received anything in the mail? I want to know if they've received anything from Mutual of Omaha too, even though technically they're not our competition. But in a way, they kind of are, because Mutual has a direct side that markets directly to the consumer. So we are kind of in a way competing with them, even though we do sell their product. And I want them to know how Joe Johnson's different, how we do business. I don't work for an insurance company. I'm a state licensed broker. This is my job. This is how our policies are different from the Colonial Penn and tell them what the 995 plan is, and let them know that the AARP is a group term life insurance and that it's going to expire right before that they really need it, you know, that sort of thing. So be sure to educate your clients on the competition, because you may think everything's going really well, but in the back of their mind, they're thinking, yeah, I'm gonna let this guy get through his presentation, and then I'm gonna call AARP and see what they're all about. Okay, so I'll flip it back over to you, unless you want me to continue. I've got a couple of more things I can cover.
Well, I just want to say something real quick about Colonial Penn. I used to actually sell Colonial Penn, and
Oh, okay.
so I just want to touch on this. So the 995 per unit, well, a unit is 1,000, right? Also, that 995 is based on a female age 50, right? So that's their lowest rate available. So even if a female age 50 were to buy $10,000 of life insurance, you multiply 10 times 995, they're paying $99.50 a month for 10 grand, right? That's way overpriced. As the age or gender changes, right, that per unit price goes up. So in some cases, that per unit price might be $15 or $16 or $17 per unit based on their age and gender, right? So, you know, it's easy to sell off of that. You know, we have Gerber, we have Sons of Norway. I mean, it is a guaranteed issue, which is a 2-year graded period. So if you don't know what that is, look into it. But I mean, it's funny because I get this question all the time, and I even get it questioned from friends and family, like, "Oh, well, what's all about this, right?" So once you explain it to them, and you can show them a better option, you know, the one, I'll just say this real quick. The one thing that you can do is say, you know, that those type of policies are really for people that are sick, people that their health has deteriorated to a point to where they're not eligible for coverage anywhere else. And if you or your family member that, you know, you're looking for insurance for is not sick, you know, not terminal, well then you should, you know, you'd qualify for a healthy plan that's going to be a lot less expensive. So that kind of just opens the door to explore a little bit. So
You can go online too, like if you're with your client and they're talking about Colonial Penn, you can just go to their website and get a quick quote too. So you can show them how ridiculously, you know, our insurance is so much better than Colonial Penn. The other mistake that I see clients or agents make is I feel like they don't do a good enough job of selling themselves. Like they do a good job of selling the product and they make a good presentation, but they just don't do a really good job of selling themselves as to why that client, why your client should do business with you versus the competition or the other agent. You know, let your clients know how you differ, what differentiates you from the other. You know, how are you special? You know, how are you going to service your client? Let them know that you're always going to be there for them. I'm going to get through these last two, Jimmy, and I'll turn it back over to you and we'll close out. The
okay.
last two things I have is I see, this is not really the presentation, but it kind of goes along with the follow-up. I see agents never do annual reviews. And I'm just telling you, man, you are missing out. If you're not doing follow-ups with your clients, and it doesn't even have to be an annual review. If you're brand new and you're watching this and maybe you just got licensed and you're thinking, I can't do any annual reviews. I just, you know, then do a 3-month review, do a 6-month review, do a 9-month review. You know, call that client up and hey, just, you know, let's go through your policy. Let's make sure you don't need to make any changes. You know, do a review with them. It doesn't need to be at a year. It could be any time. just call it a review. It's time to review your policy. Make sure we don't need to make any changes. Dust the policy off. And that's a great time not only to maybe sell them additional policies, but it's a great time to also get referrals too, if you forgot. And then that's the last thing I want to touch on, Jimmy, is, and I'm guilty of this too. I'm a big offender, but agents don't get referrals. One of the biggest mistakes you can do is that you go out, you make a presentation, you make a great presentation, you do everything perfect, and you blow it because you don't get referrals. Man, you could just increase your profitability so much. I mean, you've already spent so much time with this client. You've built rapport, you've built trust, you've built value, and you don't get a referral? That just seems crazy to me. So if you're making that mistake now, make a commitment to yourself is that from here on out, you're going to get referrals. And we've got tons of, and Jimmy and I can work with you, but we've got tons of sales training on how to properly get referrals. So Jimmy, I'll throw it back over to you to finish up with what you have, and we'll end the call for today.
So I want to expand on the referrals for just a second, Joe. The best way to get referrals is to become a resource for your client, right? A resource. They know that you're there for them. So that means that you're going above and beyond. You're doing all the things that we've already talked about. You're sending out thank you cards. I send out birthday cards. There's, you call. So like on the annual reviews, I call to set up those appointments. They don't always want to meet with me, but I give them the call. I'm touching them either by phone or in person annually at a bare minimum. What does that do? Over time, they know that I'm here for them. I'm a resource. I get so many calls from people just asking questions, not necessarily for new policies, but then eventually I get the referral or I get additional business. You need to become a resource. And so you just have to look at it. Are you in for the long haul? Because if you are, you need to become a resource of information, a resource of knowledge. You need to be their insurance agent. And that's how you get referrals. So, hey, Joe, the other thing I wanted to talk about, we hadn't talked about it yet, is the pre-sale folders. You mentioned it briefly. But the biggest mistake I see agents do is they only give them the pre-sale folder post-sale. It's not a post-sale folder. It's a pre-sale folder.
Yeah.
I see agents, and I have this question from new agents all the time. Do you leave them the folder? I only give them the folder if they buy from me. No, it's not a post-sale folder. It's a pre-sale folder. Before I even do my presentation, I open up the folder and I have talking points and I go through the content, all the leave behind forms up front because it builds credibility. I can tell you this to this day, I get calls from both clients and their children to this day. They can't find their policy, but they have that folder with my business card stapled to the inside. And I said stapled, right? I don't like stick it in those little tiers because it can fall off. So I staple it. They call me, guys, use the pre-sale folder. That builds such value. And if you don't get a sell, you leave that folder with them because they're gonna eventually look through it. They're gonna call you back. It might not be today. It might not be tomorrow. It might be 9 months from now, somebody died in their family and it triggers that, you know what, I think I should get some life insurance, right? So some event happens, they go dig your folder out, they look through the content, the guy was good, let me give him a call back. Now you're back out there. That happens to me, several times throughout the year. People are calling me from a folder I left long time ago and they still have it. Use the pre-sale folder. Don't be cheap.
Yeah, for some, they don't throw them away. They keep them. You
Yep.
know, yeah. So, all right, man. Anything, any other things that you want to add?
I'd like to say one thing going back to the 3 option quote,
Yeah,
and that is when you are working with couples, I don't show the quote independently. I don't show that this is how much for him and this is how much for her. I always do a combo quote. And
yeah,
it is very effective, especially when one of the two has a higher rate. Maybe they're a smoker, maybe they have COPD. I mean, maybe maybe they're just a lot older. Like we have carriers that have preferred, standard, and graded, right? So let's say one spouse is preferred and the other one is standard or graded, right? So their rate's going to be higher. So if you do a combo deal, same amount of coverage, let's just say 10,000 as an example. This is how much it's going to be for both of you. You're insured for 10,000, you're insured at 10,000, and this is the total. They jump on it like all the time.
yeah,
And if one of the spouses is graded, you just have to explain, and in your particular case, because you have this condition, these are the only guidelines on yours, but this is the total amount for both of you guys. If you do a combo deal, especially for that couple that has one person that's really significantly higher than the other, you'll close a lot more 2 apps. Before I started doing combo deals, I was only getting apps on the person that was, affordable, so to speak, and the other one that was kind of high, they would always pass on it. So do the combo deal, write the application up, get the signature, and fill out the monthly premium individually after the fact. Don't do it in front of them. I don't want them to see the individual numbers. I just want them to focus on the total cost.
yeah. Great tip. Yeah,
So
that's
that's it
awesome.
for
I
me,
learned
Joe.
that from you. I didn't used to do that before until I learned that from you. So that's awesome. All right, man. Anything else?
That's it, man. Y'all have a great weekend. Thank you, Joe.
All right, man. Great call. We'll get this posted. Thanks for participating, and God bless. And we'll see everybody later. Take care.
Take care.
All right, Jimmy. Take care, buddy.